But there are still a couple other things that I wanted to show off. I commend you for overcoming me. I shall reward you for your impressive feat. Bring 2 pumice pieces here, and I will synthesize them for you. The end product is something only I can create. Or you can win from Ozma. Have you brought the items? I did, but I'm not necessarily concerned with it. I already have 4 Robe of Lords. I'm not going to need another one. But what I would like to get is this tin armor. We missed that last time because I wanted to show the end of game cutscene that you get when you bring the hammer along. But since I've already shown that off and I read really quickly through it so that I could get through it, let's get the tin armor this time. As you can see, it is an upgrade for Arnold. He's the only one that can get it, and since you can only get 1 hammer, you really just need the 1. You can do the pumice, but I've already got one. It's equipped, so no need to make another one. I can't do the pumice piece because I used the hammer and the pumice is equipped, but I already have 2. I don't really need another one. There's nothing really that scares me anymore after Ozma. But what I haven't been able to get to this point, and I would like to get, is an unequipable item that I can throw. I might use it for that. We have not shown off throw like it at all, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a save the queen. It just sounds like something that I should do. And that is it. The rest of this stuff I don't necessarily care too much about. That just powers up the summons. So I'll go over which ones power up what summons and all that kind of stuff at some point, and I'll probably just hack in the jewels that I want to spare me a lot of hassle of, using Mistral to turn things into ore, and then using him or some other synthesis shop in order to get the specific jewel that I want. It's a lot of work if you want to get all this done. And once again, it's not necessarily the best way to do max damage if that's what you're after, but we did get something good out of that and quite useful out of that. Let's take a look at Arnold. He is not equipped with the best mail, so let's switch him over to probably the best one. Yeah, the Grand Armor. We'll look at the Grand Armor. They say it's the greatest armor, but they got nothing on tin. Look at that. It is so much better than the Grand Armor. Sure, 1 less strength, but really, you don't need to be too concerned with that. The extra defense, the huge increase in magic defense and magic evasion, and then the huge increase in normal evasion, which makes no sense to me because it's not like the Tin Man was known for running away or, dodging anything. But there it is, the best armor in the game for Arnold, the tin armor. Tin armor that looks like a toy, but it's so good. It is so good. But with that done, we are done back here. So there's other things that I need to take care of before we continue on to the end. I think it's time we started addressing the card game. Now, I have not been playing the card game on screen really at all this entire game because I always like it better waiting until the end, and now it's the end. So let's see the card collection that I do have. I did play a little bit off screen in order to kind of fill out my card collection. I now have 88 cards, all the different types. So I have 88 different types. The cards that I have, you can get without playing the card game ever. It will require luck. There will have to be some lucky drops from bosses and things like that, but all of these cards you can get without playing the card game at all. So this is kind of a best case scenario, very lucky when it comes to card drops, and the rest of them will come out of treasure chests and people just giving them to you. But these are the 88 that you can get. There is a way to get another one, but the requirements for that one are odd, and it only happens in disc 3, so I can't do it now anyway. We'll go over that more when we actually do get that card. Let's try to go through them quickly. It's arranged kind of left to right, so the worst cards are on the left and the best cards are on the right, sort of. Not really, but that's the general idea here, with the exception being the last row. But let's go over them kind of quickly. I'm not going to name them all. I'll point out anything that is, particularly good or particularly bad about them. Like in this first column, lots of zeros. Zeros are never good. Finally, we started getting some ones at the bottom, but ultimately, those are your basic cards. They're not particularly good, and I wouldn't recommend playing the card game if those are the only ones you got. I did only lose the one game. I went undefeated once I started playing with better cards, trying to get the rest of the cards that I wanted. But ultimately, these early cards on the left are not particularly good. As you can see, not too many 2s. We find some 1s. There's still some 0s in these. All right, let's start looking at column number 3, and these are going to start being better cards. You can actually start to win kind of consistently if you have this third column of cards, although some of them are kind of hard to find early on, but if you got them, you'll probably win. Column number 4 is when they actually start being relatively good, and you can start using strategies. Like Zemzalet here. He's got 1 physical defense, but 4 magic defense. So you might actually have to start thinking about what type of attack you're using when you're attacking him. Or you could just completely outclass him with better cards. Either way. Stroper, that one took me a little bit to get, but I was able to get it. Grand Dragon, I had so many of those. The Grand Dragons dropped them, and I killed so many Grand Dragons. Yeah, these are starting to be some really strong enemies that we're encountering now in card form, where they're not nearly as powerful, to be honest. I have a gargoyle with 0 arrows, making all his stats essentially useless. Oh well, I have a gargoyle card. That's all I really care about. Yeah, the more arrows, typically the better, but there are exceptions to it. It really just kind of depends on luck quite a bit. It doesn't really matter if you've got a card that is insanely good. If everybody else has terrible cards, then sometimes you can still lose. It's really weird how this game turns out a lot of times. Abaddon is a surprisingly good card. There's the first one that we don't have. I'll tell you right now, that is a behemoth. We're going to try to get that one a little bit later. You're starting to see some good stuff. I wish I had a better Nova Dragon card, because that is an awesome card. You can see a C and a B on it, but it's only got 1 arrow, and therefore I don't use it very much. Ozma, not particularly good. No physical defense. That's kind of surprising to me, Then we start getting spell cards. We have a Holy here, we have a Flare, and then we're starting to see the summons, the Eidolons, I believe they're called in this one. We have Shiva. We have Ifrit. Looks nothing like what I'm used to, but whatever. Some good stuff. The stats are kind of low. Even my Odin card, the stats are kind of low. Ark, however, is awesome. He doesn't have the best defense, but his offense almost always wins for me, so I use Ark. That's the first one that I actually routinely use. Then we have Alexander, great defense on physical, but that's pretty much it. We do have some weapons as well, like this Masamune. Awesome, except for that magic defense and really the low amount of arrows on it. Elixir, not as good as you would think. Dark Matter, also not as good as you would think. Ribbon, really good defensive card, but other than that, it's not particularly good. Tiger Racket sucks. Like, why is it over here? There's definitely some things where I'm like, why does that happen? Genji, apparently, defense only. I don't remember that about the Genji story, but what do I know? Once again, Mithril Sword, terrible. That's like a column 1 card, I should say, not level. The game doesn't have levels. As it turns out, most of my best cards are airships. I don't know why, but that's what happens, and that's what I've been using. Blue Narcissus is good, but that 0 makes me not want to use it. Same with the Hildegard 3, except this one's not particularly good. I do use the Invincible, which is actually pretty close to Invincible. I wish it had more arrows, but what are you going to do? The Cargo Ship, not particularly good. Hildegard 1. And then we do have the Red Rose, which is one of my favorites, despite its low physical defense. I do like the X attack on it and a lot of the defense, so I use the red rose. The theater ship is pretty bad. The Viltgans I actually do use as well. Despite its low magic defense, I keep it kind of varied. Then we have some weird cards like the Chocobo and the Fat Chocobo. They're not particularly good, but what do you expect from Chocobos? Then we have a Frog. Frogs, lots of people use. It's actually a very strategic card. I don't use it, but it can be used against me, and it does wonders. The more arrows that a frog has, the better. It can turn a match around simply by being terrible. That's just how this game works sometimes. The Oglop is terrible. The Alexandria card has good defense, so does Lindblom. Lindblom, of course, being better because it's bigger, I guess, even though I only have one arrow on it. Gargant, I don't see too many of these. I don't use it. The Naming Way card, we got one of those, and I didn't use it to name anybody. That is, I believe, the only card that has an actual purpose outside of the card game. It's kind of weird. At least in Final Fantasy VIII, cards did things. You know, you could transform them into other things. In this game, that's not the case. And then we do have the, old school airship card. And this is the card that I use a lot. This is actually one of my favorite cards. It's well-rounded. It's not particularly good at anything, but all the arrows and really good stats overall make it one of my favorite cards. Really weird. So I got airship and more airships and then arc. That's my go-to when we play the card game. But those are the cards you can get without ever playing the card game. It requires a lot of luck, a lot of random drops working in your favor, but you can get all of them without playing the card game. So that's kind of the best case scenario. We're going to start from there. Once again, I will put a link in the description to a comprehensive guide, as far as I can tell, of all the different people that can give you those cards. I will say though, if you are looking to get one of the cards, I would recommend Trino here. It typically will give you the card that you want a little bit faster than everywhere else. So this is where we're going to be to get the cards that you only can get by playing the card game.